Have you ever heard of a catfish woman or a sticky woman? My older sister, Sarah, is exactly that. My mother, Elara, says she's ill, forcing her to eat putrid, rotting food every day. But I've discovered that this isn't a simple illness. Because my sister, Sarah, has been shedding her skin, and I don't know when it started. My sister, Sarah, fell into a cesspit and was swallowed by a giant catfish. After people cut open the fish to rescue her, her personality suddenly changed drastically. She stopped bothering to walk, staying in bed all day and exhibiting strange behaviors. Yet, my mother, Elara, a woman who always valued female virtue, was not only not angry but even covered for her. Sarah suddenly became the treasure of the entire village. Every night, the men of the village would come and go. Mother said it was a precious fluid secreted by Sarah. Drinking it would not only make one's skin rosy, but also bring continuous good fortune. Sarah grew more beautiful each day, while I remained the ugliest girl in the village. Watching the men leave, I secretly spat towards Sarah's room, only to be caught by my mother. Elara slapped me hard across the face, then shoved a bucket of meat weighing dozens of pounds into my hands. "If you dare imitate your sister, I'll beat you to death. This body is for your brother. Understand? Take it in now." I didn't dare speak. Carrying the bucket of meat, I stepped into the room. Inside was completely putrid fish meat. Faint greenish-black mold covered it, and maggots squirmed within, the stench overwhelming my nose. Since returning from the cesspit, my sister had become addicted to this, especially rotten food. Village Chief Caillou said this was a rare, 1,000-year-old catfish woman, ordering the villagers to collect rotten meat and dead fish to ferment into food for Sarah. Sure enough, after eating, Sarah's skin became even whiter and smoother. People flocked to her, and my mother couldn't stop smiling. I held my breath as I brought the food to Sarah. The room was filled with a strange scent, and the messy bed awaited my cleaning. Thinking of the village men who had just left, I knew Sarah was again in an indecent state. I secretly cursed at her, shameless. But this time, a peculiar aroma wafted from Sarah's bed, like braised catfish. Under the thick blanket, Sarah was sleeping, her eyes still milky white, looking like a dead fish. Streams of fragrant mucus continuously seeped from her body, spreading an irresistibly alluring scent. At the foot of the bed was a pile of fish scale-like objects, emitting a strong fishy smell. My stomach growled with hunger, and I couldn't help but swallow. Could this be the liquid that the entire village was so enchanted by? If I ate it, I would become beautiful, and who knows, I might even marry the village chief's son and bring money home. Mother would dote on me just like she did Sarah. I couldn't hold back anymore and lunged towards the bed. I ate until my stomach was full, then woke Sarah to serve her the rest of the rotten meat before leaving the room. My sister Sarah could no longer speak. For many days, my mother began to notice that the fluid on Sarah's body had significantly decreased, and she was no longer interested in men as before. But my body slowly began to experience indescribable hot flashes. The villagers came less and less often. They said Sarah wasn't like she used to be. My mother, both suspicious and annoyed, decided to cook even more putrid meat for Sarah. No men, and too much rotten meat. Sarah was restless all over, lying in bed, screaming tragically. My mother became so determined that she stopped supervising me taking my daily medicine. Go call village chief Caillou and those old men. If things continue like this, when will my son return? I quickly stood up, preparing to call for help, but mother suddenly grabbed my hair and yanked me back. "You wretched slut! Where's your beard? Where is it? Why are your breasts growing like this? Are you taking your medicine regularly? Do you want to kill your brother, do you?" I secretly cursed mother for being crazy. My brother Thien had been dead for so many years, yet every time we ate, mother would leave a bowl and chopsticks for him. She made me hug his ashes every night, saying it was to nourish his soul. He and I were twins, but he died right after birth. Since then, mother had personally cooked a bowl of bitter medicine for me every day. She said my brother would definitely return. Seeing my silence, mother slapped me again. Startled and panicked, I quickly made up a story. "No, mother, I still take my medicine on time. I accidentally burned off my beard while cooking and my chest is still flat. I just wore more clothes today." Mother stared at me suspiciously for a long time before releasing my hair. I breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. Since eating Sarah's fluid, my coarse beard had disappeared, my throat felt smooth, and my skin had turned fair and rosy. But mother didn't seem happy to see me become beautiful. She had raised me as a boy since childhood, made me stand to pee, cut my hair short, and named me with the nickname of my deceased brother. Ah, erg, Sarah's groans echoed. My mother angrily let go of me, urging me to call village chief Caillou. Before, Sarah used to constantly beat and curse at me, and often snatched my food. As she grew older, she would even say that she should have strangled me to death at birth. So, I hated her since childhood. My mother, on the other hand, enjoyed seeing us quarrel and often incited us to fight. But this time, I truly thanked Sarah for unintentionally saving me. If my mother had discovered me stealing the precious substance from Sarah's body, I probably would have been beaten to death. I called village chief Caillou. My mother followed him in and tied Sarah's limbs. Sarah seemed terribly tormented, screaming continuously. At the same time, that strange aroma began to emanate again. My mother breathed a sigh of relief, smiling. It worked! She sent me to the cellar behind the toilet to get freshly fermented rotten meat. My mother learned this method from Aunt Vuong in the neighboring village, who sold fermented tofu in the big city. Just pour sewage water on it, and the meat would quickly ferment, emitting a terrible stench. Half an hour later, village chief Caillou and the others came out. Inside, Sarah was completely silent. I feared Sarah was dead, and mother would turn her anger on me. I quickly carried the bucket of meat into the room and noticed more and more patches of skin peeling off Sarah's body. She lay there limp, occasionally twitching a little. Fortunately, she wasn't dead. An indescribable feeling welled up in my heart as I quietly fed Sarah. After eating, Sarah fell asleep, but the fluid on her body still mesmerized my greedy stomach. I stealthily ate a mouthful, but unexpectedly, Sarah suddenly woke up midway. Seeing me, her expression abruptly changed, and she screamed, frantically waving her hands, signaling urgently. Then she slapped my face several times, screamed, pointed at the leftover rotten pork, pinned me down on the bed, and tried to pry my throat open. I struggled to resist, gritting my teeth and swallowing the food back down, my heart filled with extreme resentment and rage. I also raised my hand to hit her back. Sarah, that's enough. Since childhood, you've bullied me, stolen my food. Now I just eat a little of your leftovers and you want me to spit it out. We are both girls. Who is more valuable than whom? Our whole family of 3 are all garbage. Why do you all treat me like this? Sarah paused, then used even more force to pry my throat open. I wailed, finally vomiting everything I had eaten into the bucket of meat. Sarah seemed relieved of a burden. Seeing the red handprint on my face, she gently reached out to touch my cheek, her eyes tearful. Why act hypocritical? Weren't you fierce when you hit me earlier? Eat it, you'll die on this bed sooner anyway. After scolding, I wiped my tears and walked out. Just as I was about to open the door, I ran into my mother and village chief Caillou, who were about to enter the room. I stumbled and fell into Caillou's arms. He reeked of a fishy stench. He narrowed his eyes and smiled grotesquely. Elara, your second girl is getting plump too, isn't she? My mother's face changed color. She took off her sandal and whipped it straight at my face. You ill-bred slut, how dare you try to seduce a man? I cried and dodged, shouting, why does Sarah get to be a catfish woman? I want to be a catfish woman too. Reflexively, I ducked behind Sarah, just like when I was little. Back then, I often let Sarah take the beating for me. In return, I would share my food portion with her. My mother's sandal almost struck Sarah's face but stopped in time. She still had to rely on Sarah's face to earn money. I looked at Sarah's back again and my scalp immediately went numb. Have you ever seen a poisoned rat lying by the roadside for a week? Its outer skin is intact like a normal rat, even twitching occasionally. But one day, when there's a tear, the maggots inside will crawl out, sending shivers down your spine. My sister's back was exactly like that. During our struggle, I accidentally scratched her back. Normally, it would only leave a red mark, but this time her skin was so thin that a light scratch tore it open, revealing a completely white bone. No blood flowed out, only countless tiny white creatures squirming, sharp bone tips protruding like fish bones caught in a throat. My mother froze for a second, then became even more frantic, lunging to hit me. Village Chief Caillou blocked my mother's hand, his eyes darting back and forth between Sarah and me. He slowly bared his teeth in a sinister smile, his gaze fixed on me. Elara, do you want to be a catfish woman too? Before, I always thought that if I became a catfish woman, I would be beautiful like Sarah, with fair, smooth skin, get to eat meat every day, and only have to sleep with men. But looking at Village Chief Caillou's wrinkled face at that moment, I suddenly wavered. Not a sticky woman, but a catfish woman, that's the correct term. I suddenly remembered the story an old bachelor told about a catfish woman. His younger sister was chosen by a rich family to be a catfish woman because the rich man's daughter had died of illness and then revived. He said his sister was thrown into a giant cesspit. When she returned, her personality changed completely. Her body grew increasingly numb, and she was constantly consumed by a craving not for water, but for men. Only men could sustain her life. In the final stage, a giant catfish would appear on the bed where the catfish woman slept, its entire body covered in precious mucus, like a child in an amniotic sac. Just place a dead person in it, and they would be revived. Sadly, back then, I was only moved and envious of that dead girl. Envious because she had such a good, rich father. Envious because the catfish woman had earned a lot of money for her family, and everyone in the household lived a prosperous life, without ever considering whether the catfish woman was willing or not. Village Chief Caillou still stared at me with greedy, blue-tinged eyes. "Answer me, Elara, do you want to be a catfish woman?" It was as if I just nodded, I would be dragged straight down into that cesspit with the catfish for a whole night and become the second catfish woman. My breathing suddenly became ragged, and saliva flowed continuously in my mouth. Before my eyes, the white creatures on Sarah's back coiled for a moment, and the deep wound, right down to the bone, slowly healed. This terrifying regenerative ability, combined with the absurd legend of resurrection, all indicated that the so-called catfish woman the old woman spoke of years ago was this thing, neither human nor fish, standing before me. The giant catfish that eventually appeared on the bed was, in fact, the catfish woman, the old woman's sister, and soon to be my sister. They hadn't vanished but had completely become the slimy catfish women in the pond, allowing others to carve them up. My entire body stiffened. Mother quickly shook her head, signaling, and Sarah also put her hand behind me, blocking me. I fell to my knees before Village Chief Caillou, slamming my head hard against the ground. "Village Chief Caillou, I was wrong. I was just craving meat and spoke nonsense. I don't want to be a catfish woman anymore. From now on, I will listen to you and Mother." I was disheartened. I no longer wanted to lie in bed, eat meat, and be served. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief, her eyes sweeping over me with a complex expression before she collapsed back onto the bed, her face contorted in pain. Mother grabbed my ear and dragged me into the yard, whipping me with a cane until I was sore all over. But Village Chief Caillou still wouldn't let go. "Are you sure you don't want to be a catfish woman? What's so bad about being a catfish woman? The whole village will provide you with fish and meat 3 times a day. Your skin will be fair and smooth like your sister's. It's a rare, great blessing." The more alluringly he spoke, the more repulsed I felt. I knelt again and kowtowed to him. Only when my knees were bleeding from striking the ground did he let me go. A few days after Village Chief Caillou had been coming and going, Sarah's room became lively with people again. Mother couldn't sit still. That day, returning from the fields, I overheard Mother and Caillou whispering outside Sarah's room. "Why hasn't my Sarah transformed yet? Thiene's birthday is coming soon. Will he really be revived? Those 2 old grandmasters were frauds." Village Chief Caillou frowned. "Impossible." Master Ma's daughter was also saved by Grandmaster Lydian back then. The prescription was written by his own hand. It can't be wrong. Perhaps Sarah absorbed too little. "I hear there's a new construction team in town. You wait, I'll call them over. That will surely make Sarah ripen faster. If not, there's Elara, her sister, as a backup. Just wait for good news." I heard it vaguely, but knew for sure nothing good would come of it. The last time Sarah saved me, I suddenly didn't want her to die anymore. Today, after he left, I sneaked in to clean, and at the same time, I secretly observed Sarah. I discovered that her toes had fused together. Her toes wiggled just like a catfish's tail. Even more horrifying was that her mouth was wide enough to fit a newborn baby as she frantically ate the rotting, stinking pork. I took 2 steps back. My sister no longer seemed human. If she truly turned into a catfish, Mother wouldn't feed her meat anymore, right? Then maybe I could eat 2 servings every day? Perhaps my greed was too obvious. Sarah suddenly stopped chewing. A relatively intact piece of meat remained in the bucket. She offered it to me with a forced smile. I was stunned and didn't dare to take it. Sarah impatiently held the meat close to my lips. The strong, fishy smell wafted into my nose. My heart suddenly warmed, and my nose unconsciously stung with tears. Since Father died, my sister and I had only eaten 1 meal a day, often fighting over every sweet potato or wild fruit hidden under the bed. Once, over a sweet potato, Sarah hit me and broke my tooth. Last time, when I ate a little of Sarah's fluid, I had my throat pried open, and now she was sharing meat with me. She surely didn't know that this younger sister had once wanted her dead and gone. I quickly lowered my face to avoid her gaze. Rushed, carrying the bucket of meat, I was about to go to the door. I thought I heard Sarah sigh, and my heart suddenly twisted. Just as I turned, I bumped into Village Chief Kaio, who had suddenly returned. He looked at the leftover meat in the bucket, his expression changing. "What did you see?" I gritted my teeth and knelt, gathering all my courage to plead. "Village Chief Kaio, my sister is very weak. Please don't torture her anymore, she will die." No sooner had I finished speaking than I heard Sarah's fierce screams, but no one understood what she was saying. Village Chief Kaio ignored my desperate pleas, personally using needle and thread to stitch my mouth shut. I was in so much pain that I soiled my pants. The black, zigzagging stitches on my lips made the village children cry out in fear when they saw me. He instructed my mother, "Women only cause trouble. Forbid her from delivering food. If you make even a small mistake, not only will your son not be revived, but this entire village will die too. Don't forget what happened 30 years ago." My mother obeyed Village Chief Kaio implicitly, truly chaining me to the gate with a dog chain, preventing me from delivering food. From then on, I never saw Sarah again. As my brother's birthday drew closer, my mother became more anxious. Every day, she invited Village Chief Kaio to our house to discuss. After Sarah becomes a catfish woman, Thien will return. We have agreed. Afterwards, Sarah will belong to our entire village. The money from selling her fluid will belong to the village. My mother, eyes brimming with tears, nodded continuously. "I will listen to you. As long as my son can be revived, sacrificing 2 useless daughters is nothing. All right, only one last session with Sarah tomorrow. To be sure, I have arranged for 18 people to see her off in her final state. You just wait for good news." I diligently chopped firewood as if I heard nothing. But in the middle of the night, I secretly bit through the dog chain and crawled in the dark to find Sarah. I wanted to tell her to run far away, and never come back. As soon as I slipped into Sarah's room, the outside suddenly flared with fire. A crowd of men packed our yard. My mother, holding a rope, led the charge. I immediately hid in Sarah's wardrobe. Sarah, in a deep sleep, was grabbed by her hair and dragged up. She had immense strength, and her body was covered in slippery mucus. It took several men to press her down and control her. The men who had once frequented her room now turned on her with extreme cruelty. What a pity tonight is the last time. My mother fawned over the men, her face covered in sweat, then turned and slapped Sarah several times. "You slut! I've raised you all this time, and now that I need your help, you dare not obey? From now on, you'll obediently earn money for the village, understand?" Everyone rushed to praise Mother for her foresight, praising my father for dying early but marrying a good wife. My mother humbly waved her hand, looking smug like a victorious rooster, as she led the group carrying Sarah away. I watched in horror from the window. The men looked at Sarah like hungry hawks. The peaceful summer night suddenly turned into a banquet for devils. A giant pot of water on the stove was boiling furiously. My hand touched something soft. I lifted the bottom layer of the quilt. Several pieces of fresh pork were neatly arranged. It was the meat Sarah had saved for me. My eyes stung with tears. Outside, tragic screams echoed. 8 men were carrying Sarah, intending to throw her into the boiling water. Sarah suddenly turned towards me, her eyes looking straight into the wardrobe crack. Her lips moved continuously. I watched closely and finally understood what she wanted to say. "Save me." I could almost feel the scalding steam rising from the large pot. The old hatred from years ago, when Sarah had broken my tooth and stolen my food, suddenly vanished with this hot vapor. The neighbor old woman's words suddenly echoed in my mind. If only I had known she wouldn't come back, I would have definitely let her run far away, as far as possible. I took a deep breath, gathered my courage, picked up the pieces of pork on the bed, and threw them with all my might towards the men. The meat plopped into the boiling water, splashing everywhere and causing them to immediately release Sarah. Sarah let out an inhuman scream, and her body made strange cracking sounds. "Quick, catch her! The catfish woman is escaping!" I watched with wide eyes as my sister slithered away like a real catfish. Her body was so slippery that no one could grab her. In an instant, she had vanished into the puddle near the wall. They couldn't catch her. Sarah had truly escaped. I felt both fear and triumph. Since childhood, she had called me useless, saying I never accomplished anything. But look, sister, I did it this time. My lips curled into a faint smile, the stitches on my mouth throbbing with pain. Immediately after, I was dragged out like a dead dog. I had never seen Village Chief Kaiu's eyes like that, filled with hatred, as if he wanted to tear me into 100 pieces. "You wretched slut, what were you doing hiding in your sister's room? You wanted to set her free all along, didn't you?" My mother also went mad, slapping my face more than 10 times, still not appeased, then kicked me to the ground. "Elara, do you know you're killing the entire village?" Village Chief Kaiu's face darkened. I didn't know why they were suddenly so afraid. It was as if my sister, once she escaped this yard, would turn into something terrifying. "Village Chief Kaiu, you're the village chief, make a decision. I don't want to die. Everyone knows the Catfish Woman holds grudges the longest in this village. You were the one who devised the plan in the first place, and now this slut threw something out. If you can't find the Catfish Woman, use her as a scapegoat." They buzzed with agitated whispers. My mother suddenly fished a piece of pork out of the furiously boiling pot and stepped in front of me. She laughed until tears streamed down her face. "Elara, this meat. This is what your sister left for you, isn't it? Did you think you were so smart? You idiot, you were tricked by your sister and thought you were clever." My mother looked at me with pity, as if looking at a fool. My mind suddenly went blank, like a bomb exploding in my head. "You've been foolish since childhood, you wretched slut. Your sister has 800 schemes, and you dared to trust her. Have you forgotten? That year, your brother Thien appeared to me in a dream, saying he wanted both of you sisters to come with him and take care of him later. Your sister immediately pointed at you. This is what they called killing with words. 1 second before, I was filled with pride for having saved my sister. The next second, my mother personally pushed me into hell. Sarah, did she really trick me? It couldn't be. She even left me so much pork, her favorite rotten meat. Dragged on the ground, slapped more than 10 times by mother, I hadn't cried. But now, tears just streamed out. It turned out my rare act of bravery was just a joke. Seeing me cry, mother smirked, leaning close to ask, "Your sister always takes you wherever she goes, right? You must know where she's hiding, don't you? If we can't find her, you'll be the second Catfish Woman. Tell me where your sister is hiding. Then I'll feed you 3 meals a day, and you can have that meat too." The villagers, hearing my mother's words, suddenly slapped their thighs as if realizing something. "That's right. This girl must know where the Catfish Woman ran off to. Speak up quickly." I stared blankly at the faces swirling before my eyes. They were the uncles and aunts of the village. Some had even held me when I was a child. Now, their faces showed greed and malevolence like hungry demons. My own mother held a cup of scalding hot water, preparing to force my mouth open as she tightened her grip on my neck. My closest sister betrayed and tricked me. Who else could I trust? The light before my eyes grew blinding. I seemed to see my afterlife, just like the revived girl the lonely old woman told about. If she had a loving father, she would never be called garbage by others. I gradually lost consciousness. I wished I would just die, but they wouldn't let me off easily. I was hung from the banyan tree at the head of the village. That was mother's idea. "This Elara girl has always been shy since she was little. Hang her here. When people pass by and see her, she'll learn to be afraid." Village Chief Kaiu even smeared my entire body with putrid meat. He said my sister, having escaped, must be hungry and thirsty. If she smelled this, she would secretly come back to eat. It turned out they were using me as bait for my sister. But a day, 2 days passed, and I still didn't open my mouth. My sister didn't return either. The village suddenly fell into chaos. No one knew when, but those who had touched my sister gradually had their limbs fused together. Long, white worms crawled out of their pores. Screams of terror echoed everywhere. That was the only joy I felt when I was conscious. It was definitely the Catfish Woman's revenge. "You bastards, I told you not to touch that vile thing. But you insisted, saying it was to boost your virility. I saw you going." Near me, Aunt Clara's house erupted in weeping and cursing. Uncle Ben was the one who had entered Sarah's room the most. Now, his entire body was rotting down to his thighs. More and more people gathered in panic under the banyan tree, pressuring Village Chief Kaiu and my mother to take action. Village Chief Kaiu's hand also began to rot, making him grimace in pain. This Sarah girl dared to make herself bleed to take revenge on us. How audacious. We're all from the same village, how could she be so cruel? I even gave her a piece of candy when she was little. Truly shameless. Seducing men and then killing the whole village. Catfish women don't live long anyway, and she blames us. People whispered and gossiped, cursing my sister like a village traitor. Village Chief Kaiu raised his hand for silence, his face showing determination as he searched for a yellowed piece of paper with a phone number. He appeased the crowd. "At this point, we must pool our money and invite a grandmaster. Once Sarah is caught, I will give everyone 3 portions of her fluid to atone for my mistakes. Also, keep an eye on Elara these next few days. Don't let her die. Go find a bucket of catfish over 10 years old. If we truly can't find her sister, then Elara will take her place. My eyes widened in horror, fear rushing into every pore. Before, I was terrified of ghosts, but now I was more afraid of people. The village chief quickly invited Grandmaster Lydian. The Grandmaster, Lydian, was skinny like a stick, but exuded an aura of a wise immortal. As soon as he saw me hanging from the tree, not knowing whether I was alive or dead, he immediately cried out in alarm. "What is this? How dare you hang a perfectly fine girl? Quick, take her down now, she's about to suffocate." The villagers greatly respected the Grandmaster, mostly out of fear for their lives, so they reluctantly lowered me. "Grandmaster, you don't understand. She's an accomplice to that evil demon, a true slut." My mother glared at me with contempt, trying to flatter the Grandmaster. She was accustomed to fawning over any outsider, but she had never looked at my sister and me directly, not even once. The Grandmaster removed his cloak and draped it over me, carefully removing each stitch that clung tightly to my lips. His face darkened as he looked at the villagers. "You say there's an evil demon harming people in your village, which is why I came. But what I see on your bodies, this is clearly the Catfish Woman's method of self-preservation to harm her enemies. What exactly have you done to this girl?" Everyone stammered, afraid to look him in the eye. Only village chief Kaio had a pained expression. That girl was violated by a catfish, and her personality changed. Her mother served her diligently every day, and we visited her often, but who knew she would lose all humanity? "Is that true? We wouldn't dare lie to you, Grandmaster, just ask her mother." My mother nodded without hesitation. The Grandmaster finally sighed. "If that is the case, I will help you find that Catfish Woman. Evil demons that harm people should be eliminated. Everyone, go home and mix fresh cow dung with cooking ash and apply it to your rotting wounds. It will heal in 3 days. The Catfish Woman's entire body is defiled with evil energy. I must go to the mountains to gather mugwort and golden sparrow grass to cure it. Take good care of this girl." As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd cheered joyfully as if it were a festival. Only I tugged at the Grandmaster's robe, begging for help, but the tightly stitched wound on my lips prevented me from speaking a word. My mother harshly pulled my hand away, personally extinguishing the last spark of hope. Finally, they used the catfish to violate my body. I cried and struggled, but I was like a fish on a chopping block, left for them to carve up. The pain made me wish for death. Strangely enough, after experiencing the most horrific moments, I still survived. I was locked in the village's dilapidated old temple. Those people unleashed all their fear and resentment of the past days upon me. Even my mother was beaten severely by the village women, who blamed her for giving birth to 2 fox spirits who harmed the men in their homes. I tried to endure, only wanting to see my sister one last time. I wanted to ask her myself if those pieces of pork were meant to trick me. I wanted to ask her if she ever considered me her sister. But I didn't wait for Sarah. Instead, I waited for Lydian, who was supposed to be in the mountains gathering herbs. I thought he, like the villagers, had come to unleash his beastly desires, but to my surprise, he signaled me to be silent. "Don't speak. I know both you sisters have been harmed. Your sister, the Catfish Woman, could have escaped through an underground stream, but she chose to intentionally bleed to take revenge on these people. That proves your sister is definitely nearby, wanting to save you, and has certainly endured inhuman torture. Now, only I can save you 2 sisters. Little girl, look straight into my eyes. Tell me the truth, what exactly happened? Where is your sister hiding? Any more delay, and it will be too late, even I will be implicated." I opened my eyes wide, realizing the Grandmaster didn't believe their fabricated stories. That was great. I tried to recount how they treated Sarah and me, clinging to him like a last lifeline. The Grandmaster's face was filled with indignation. "How dare they? How could they dare? Isn't this a disregard for human life? Don't worry, I won't stand idly by. Tell me where your sister is hiding, and I will secretly take her away. Tomorrow I will come back for you." He stared intensely at me, just waiting for me to reveal Sarah's whereabouts. A strange glint flickered in his eyes. I didn't understand why, but goosebumps erupted all over my body. After a long moment, I shook my head helplessly. I truly didn't know. I had lied to him. Now, I dared not trust anyone anymore. This small village seemed to have everyone wearing an impenetrable mask. Grandmaster Lydian shook his head in resignation. "It seems you still don't trust me. This is fate. Tomorrow is the day your sister will be captured. I am in a difficult position and have no choice but to do this. Don't blame me, you two sisters." He stood up, didn't look at me again, and left. I had almost spoken just now. I didn't know if my choice was right or wrong. Anyway, I couldn't live much longer. I didn't want to be involved in their affairs. But who would have thought in the middle of the night, almost dawn, someone suddenly appeared? It was my mother. "Elara, Elara, wake up." The familiar voice made me tremble instinctively. I was about to be beaten again. My mother impatiently shook my shoulder, lowering her voice, afraid others would hear. I opened my eyes and saw her complex gaze, filled with both helplessness and pity. Her body was also covered in numerous scratches and scrapes that made one shiver. She untied me and placed a small package in my arms. Inside was a hot bun and a few crumpled banknotes. "Why are you standing there stunned? Run, run far away like your sister did. Don't ever come back. I've seen the true faces of these villagers. When our family had value, they treated us like precious eggs. When we lost value, they kicked us away. Did they think I was kind and easy to bully?" She muttered nonstop, occasionally grimacing in pain. Finally, she hugged me and pushed me out of the temple door. The wind blew through, clearing my muddled mind. Suddenly, an unprecedented strength surged within me. In the pitch-black night, I ran like the wind. The pain in my body was nothing compared to the exhilaration of freedom. I ran straight up the mountain, wondering if Sarah felt as joyous as I did now when she escaped. Finally, we wouldn't have to be garbage anymore. I didn't dare run straight to the main road to catch a vehicle. I didn't trust anyone. I hid in a cave for several days. When my food ran out, I ate wild fruits and drank rainwater. I heard the initial commotion from the village, then it gradually fell silent. I smelled the mucus on my sister's body. After much hesitation, I finally followed the scent. Actually, I always knew where she was hiding. I still wanted to ask her that question. My sister always hid in the abyss of forsaken women, called that because the dirty, stinking swamp was filled with the bleached bones of drowned village girls. It was full of the bleached skeletons of girls drowned in the surrounding villages. No one dared to go there, fearing that the drowned girls would rise to find replacements. "Sarah, Sarah," I whispered her name, quickly picking wild fruits, thinking that if she didn't come out, I would go alone and never look back. My sister slowly emerged from the swamp, baring her teeth and smiling at me. She held a dead rat and threw it towards me, signaling me to eat. At that moment, all the injustice and fear of the past days rushed over me. I sobbed uncontrollably. Sarah looked at me irritably, waited for me to finish crying, then led me to a secluded cave. At the end of the cave, there was a faint light. It was the path to freedom. We supported each other and walked out. My sister couldn't speak, so I chattered, telling her how the villagers had been tormented to a pulp by her self-bleeding method, how Uncle Ben had fearfully prayed to gods and Buddhas. Sarah said nothing, just walked with her head down. Hearing my triumphant words, she couldn't help but press her lips together and smile faintly. I looked at her, she was so beautiful. The mouth of the cave was right before us. I cried out joyfully, "Sister, we finally escaped." Sarah was about to smile at me, but the expression on her face suddenly stiffened. Let's see how far you can run this time." Leading the group was still my mother. Beside her, grandmaster lay Diane, with a cold, mocking expression. "You truly have excellent methods. First, make this girl lose all hope in her sister, then use a ruse to let her go, and finally sprinkle tracking powder on her. Even immortals would find it hard to escape. Ha ha, no one understands a child better than their mother. This Elara girl has been foolishly loyal and righteous since she was little. If it were Sarah, I wouldn't dare use this trick. Fortunately, the wounds on my body were not in vain." Mother looked at us with smugness, her face flushed with the praise of everyone. My heart was shattered, my whole body chilled as I looked at her ugly, triumphant smile. "I'll kill her, I must kill her." I pushed Sarah forcefully behind me, lunging to grab my mother's throat. I used all the strength of my life, only wanting to strangle this demon before me. But the one who died in the end was Sarah. She self-destructed. Blood and fluid covered everyone. Anyone who was touched immediately disintegrated into a pile of rotten flesh. More than 10 people in the village died. I was captured, still unable to escape this damned fate. I became the second Catfish Woman. But now, I didn't want to run, and I no longer wanted to die. If I died, who would avenge Sarah? I grew to love eating rotten meat, just like Sarah. Fermented pork would make my power grow stronger and stronger. Isn't that how catfish are? They came every day to collect the mucus from my body. My mother earned a lot of money but still frowned with worry. "Grandmaster, now there is only one blood relative left. Elara will be the surrogate mother, so what about the vessel to revive my son? Grandmaster Lydian's voice was cold. Why are you only asking now? I told you 18 years ago to revive your son, you need 2 blood-related women, 1 catfish woman as the surrogate mother and 1 ordinary girl as the vessel. My mother stammered. If I had listened to you, I just feared people would mock me. Giving birth to 2 useless daughters was humiliating enough. If I had another, how could I live in the village? Who knew Sarah would dare to commit suicide? The 2 of them talked nonchalantly outside my room. I smiled coldly to myself. In the past year, I had gradually understood their plan. It turned out that Lydian was the grandmaster from all those years ago. The reason Mother didn't throw us into the abyss of forsaken women to drown was to use dark magic to revive her stillborn son. I heard my mother fall silent for a moment, then she resolutely spoke. As long as they're blood-related, right? Then use me. As long as my son can be revived, it's fine if I, his mother, die. Lydian gave a strange laugh. I didn't expect you to have such maternal love, only it's a pity you didn't spare any for your 2 daughters. My entire body trembled. It turned out that in Mother's heart, having a son had been the most important thing all these years. So important that she was willing to sacrifice 2 daughters and even herself. Only a few days remained until my 18th birthday. How wonderful. On my birthday, Lydian set up a strange ritual formation. My mother and I were placed in the center of the formation. The entire village came to witness this resurrection spell. They had forgotten about the dozen or so people killed by the Catfish Woman. Truly, they were nosy and fearless of death. That was good, I wouldn't have to seek them out one by one. On those excited faces, every hand was stained with my blood and Sarah's. My body secreted more and more fluid in immense pain. It turned out Sarah had to endure this kind of pain every day. Lydian placed a small coffin between my mother and me, containing the urn of ashes. Red threads tightly wrapped our hands, blood from our wounds dripped along the red threads, drop by drop, into the ashes. Catfish have strong vitality. Even when dried, they can be revived with enough water and food. The air gradually thickened. More and more blood flowed from my body, and Mother was exhausted. Her body twisted abnormally, her flesh and bones continuously restructuring as if transforming into another person. But Mother wasn't afraid. Instead, she looked at the vibrating urn of ashes with eyes full of love, silent tears falling. Thene, Mother has waited for you for 18 years. From now on, live well for Mother. I let out a soft laugh. She turned to me in surprise. I leaned close to her face, a malicious smile I couldn't suppress spreading across my lips. Mother, brother isn't coming back. Guess who is in this urn of ashes? Mother's eyes widened in panic. The more agitated she became, the faster her blood flowed. Her face turned pale, unable to utter a word. I watched calmly, continuing to smile. It's your older daughter, Sarah, the daughter you always despised. I'm not that foolish, am I? I secretly switched their ashes a long time ago. Why didn't you notice? Haha, you once said grandmother loved you the most because you were the youngest daughter. So why did you become like this after being sold here? Is a son so important? Mother's eyes stared, the last drops of blood flowing from the corners of her eyes and nose. No one heard this conversation. No one knew she died from resentment. Everyone screamed in horror as the urn of ashes exploded with a bang. Lydian's eyes gleamed brightly, sweating profusely as he shouted, "It's a success!" A thunderous applause erupted. Congratulations on the death of 2 women, the rebirth of 1 man. They whispered amongst themselves, their faces beaming, as if they themselves had been reborn, utterly ecstatic. Too bad they still didn't know they were about to die. Lydian gave a grotesque laugh. Thank you all. I, Lydian, have been planning for 18 years, and finally I have summoned this boy born in the auspicious hour, day, month, and year. My 5 talent imps will first feast on all of you. Ha ha. The scene suddenly fell silent. Village Chief Caillou forced a smile and asked, Grandmaster Ly, is that enough? Didn't we agree that Thene would be your disciple upon his revival, and Elara, transformed into a catfish woman, would be ours? A joke. I'm not joking. I want both the catfish woman and my imps. All of you will die today. Screams and curses erupted. The villagers realized they couldn't escape. The thick air earlier was the poison Lydian had mixed into the ritual formation. Now, everyone's limbs were soft and weak. I savored the terror on their faces. Suddenly, they knelt before me. Elara, you are from this village. You must help us. That's right. You and your sister stole many persimmons from my house when you were little. Quickly kill this evil sorcerer. Only you still have strength. You are a catfish woman, you must have a way to unleash insects to bite him, or self-destruct like your sister to save the village. Once again, I was astonished by their shamelessness. They dared to beg me to save their lives. Dian heard their suggestion and gave a cold laugh. How did you treat the two sisters before? Your sins are countless times heavier than mine, yet now you hope she will save you? Ha ha, I drained her blood long ago. Instead of begging her, you might as well obediently become food for my little imps to fill their stomachs. How ignorant of your own limitations. I watched with interest as a blood-soaked individual beside me struggled to crawl away. When he had barely dragged himself out of the formation, I turned to Dian with a smile. He was angered by my inexplicable smile, raised his hand, and slapped me. His face no longer bore the dignified, enlightened demeanor of a grandmaster from before. They don't know their limitations, so what about me? My sister's voice echoed. Dian's eyes widened in shock as he turned and saw a human figure gradually emerging from the ground. The beautiful woman smiled at him, surrounded by an eerie aura that sent shivers down one's spine. How can it be you? Where is Thene? Where are my 5 talent imps? Dian screamed in rage, continuously backing away. The villagers gradually overcame their shock, clapping and cheering. Kill this evil sorcerer. Indeed, Elara is the most capable girl in our village, I burst out laughing. They fawned over my sister one moment, then cursed Dian as an evil sorcerer, even stepping on my mother and saying she didn't cherish her 2 precious daughters. These sycophants were the very ones who had pushed my sister and me into the fiery pit. They were still the same people. The difference was that we had become strong, much stronger than them. But I was no longer the foolishly loyal and righteous Elara my mother spoke of. Go ahead, sister. Sarah, like a phantom, pressed close to Dian. Countless insects crawled from her body and burrowed into his. He screamed, wept, pleaded, cursed, and tried to perform incantations, but all were in vain. Little by little, the insects devoured his flesh and blood. The backlash from the formation ensured he could never reincarnate. Dian gradually became motionless, his eyes wide with tears and hatred, lacking only regret. The villagers watched him transform from a lively human into a pile of pristine white bones. The insects, gorged on flesh and blood, had swelled to double their size, laboriously dragging their bodies towards the crowd. They shifted from triumphant applause to terror, finally understanding that my sister and I would spare no one. No, I'm sorry, I'm not human. Please spare us. From now on, Village Chief Caillou will be your slave. Don't eat me. They knelt, weeping incessantly, watching in terror as the ever-increasing swarm of insects engulfed them. Corpses piled up like mountains, a sea of blood. It was truly hell on earth. I silently watched those who had made my life worse than death slowly disappear from this world. From now on, there would be no more abyss of forsaken women. No one would call us sluts or garbage anymore. My sister and I lived a monotonous life in the mountains for an unknown number of years. Our lifespan became very long, so long that we forgot the passage of time. Until one day, we were discovered in our sleep by others. Hey, why aren't you going to school? School's started, so why are you here? I looked hazily at the young men and women dressed in activewear, hiking before us. Girls can go to school? I whispered. Haha, of course. It's 2024, why would anyone still ask that question? That's right, women are half the sky. Hey, you're not just half the sky, you're the whole sky for my family. They laughed and chatted as they walked away. My sister and I looked at each other, both seeing a bright gleam in the other's eyes. We had finally waited for true freedom.